Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
Well, it's probably pretty well known by folks who were pretty familiar with UFOs or UAPs, but probably pretty unknown to, I guess the average or kind of not as in tune viewer or listener on this one. This is something happened, again, over the skies of Washington, D.C. Still has not been explained today. And when we get into it, kind of at the end, you'll hear the government response to it. It's completely ridiculous, but let's just get into it.
All right. As usual, I have not seen this video, so my responses will be authentic. Here we go.
In July of 1952, during the administration of Harry Truman, Washington, D.C. appeared to be the target of airborne intruders. But the prowlers weren't Soviet fighter planes. They seemed to be UFOs.
This guy's voice.
Perhaps the most important sighting of all time was the so-called Washington merry-go-round.
On two weekends in 1952, July 19 and 20, and July 26 and 27, UFOs were tracked by radar and seen by numerous individuals over Washington, D.C. and its environs. People at Andrews Air Force Base and at Washington National Airport went outside and could actually see objects in the sky that matched positions of blips on the radar scopes. And the net result of it was, for a couple of days there, UFOs seemed to have had their way over the skies of Washington.
On the third day of the sightings, as operators tracked the mysterious signals, curiosity suddenly turned to panic. The objects were heading toward the prohibited airspace over the Capitol and the White House itself. The Pentagon ordered jets from an airbase in Delaware to intercept the intruders.
Yeah, I really like that guy's voice. It kind of sounds very cartoonish.
The guy's voice is really interesting. He kind of sounds like the old guy who did Perry Mason. I can't remember his name, but I'm talking about the old Perry Mason, not if there wasn't up the like Reckoning Room. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of like matches the period of time what they're talking about here. But yeah, just think about that though. I mean, if that happened today, I imagine what that would look like as soon as the press got a hold of it. I mean, it'd be insane.
Well, especially if we're talking about objects that could be seen very clearly with the naked eye that match the radar. I mean,
Yep.
And so in plain sight.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are two huge pieces of evidence that you got to have to kind of back up any kind of sighting like this. Right. So, but again, like I said, I don't want to give any kind of spoilers, but it's the government response to this is not going to match up with all the facts, I don't think.
Okay. Well, let's continue.
Al Chop was the Air Force's civilian spokesman on UFO issues. He was called to the radar room at Washington National as the dramatic incident unfolded.
We were observing about 4 or 5 known flights and about 12 to 14 UFOs. And we saw the flight coming in from Delaware. We could see them on the radar scope. And the moment they came on the scope, all the UFOs disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The fighter planes patrolled the empty skies for some 20 minutes, but there was nothing to intercept. However, when the jets returned to base, the UFOs promptly reappeared on radar.
And then when they came back, after the interceptors left, the fact that they immediately came back on the scope, I was very apprehensive.
Again, jets were sent aloft. One pilot reported seeing the UFOs, which he described as blue and white lights. Then he reported that they were closing in.
So another visual.
We could also see them on the radar scope, and we could see his return and the unknowns grouping around him. And he said, they're all around me. And then he said later on, what shall I do? Well, what could we tell him?
I mean, I think if you just listen to that guy right there talk about that, I mean, you can see it. He was all coming back to him. It was like, what can you do in a situation like that?
Right. Like he didn't have a canned response. Like he wasn't going through a manual saying, "Well, if you see UFOs."
Yeah, yeah, they're surrounding me. They're blue. They're blue and white. Again, they've been verified by radar on the ground. I mean, this is like it's actually surprising to me that this is not a more well-known incident. But again, and you're going to see here, and I think in just a minute, the government response I'm talking about, and it's kind of a famous one. Again, if you're into ufology at all, but just based on the evidence that we've seen so far, it's very, very compelling.
Well, I think I asked you this question before when for during another video, but don't pilots like that have a recorder that's recording everything that they're saying?
You mean like a black box or something like that?
Black box records the equipment and all that stuff, and I think they do record conversations as well, right?
Yeah, but probably from the tower back to the pilot as well. But
Got it.
again, a lot of that stuff gets taken. It gets becomes classified. So never sees the light of day.
All right. Well, let's continue here.
After a few minutes, the UFOs pulled back and then disappeared. The standoff was over. However, the extended episode had stunned the nation.
That sighting has never been adequately explained. Because it happened in Washington, D.C., it alerted everybody right on up to the President of the United States and caused a national press conference by the Chief of Intelligence of the Air Force to try to calm everybody down.
We have received an
This is the speech.
between 1 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States.
General Sanford went on to explain that the sightings were merely an atmospheric anomaly, an inversion layer. Radar signals had bounced off this layer and picked up ground images of cars and buildings. Somehow, experienced radar operators at 3 different locations had misidentified them as UFOs. The press dutifully took down the story.
They bought the explanations. It was still standard practice, and it was for many years, to accept whatever the government said about flying saucers, no matter how foolish it was when you looked at it carefully.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Some
It's like
condition.
it's like swamp gas, basically the same kind of thing. That
Yeah.
all these things they try to come up with to try to discredit it, and it to me it's an insult to the people who did report in, who did say that they saw these things. Are you going to tell me that they saw an atmospheric inversion? That the pilot who was being surrounded by these things did that? I mean, come on.
Well,
It's lame.
and obviously the narrator. Are you talking about Raymond Burr, by the way?
Yes, Raymond Burr. Thank you. Yeah.
So the
Older Raymond Burr, maybe maybe with a cold.
Yeah, the narrator exactly with a cold. The narrator did say something to the effect of, well, there are 3 experienced radar technicians. What, they all 3 misidentified this
Exactly.
separately? Yeah, it is suspicious, but it's very much indicative of what governments, especially during that time, do.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I get it, because if you're in the military and you're realizing that they're doing this, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Plus, you get just after World War II, now you're into Korea, the Korean War as well. I think it was going on then, or was about to begin. A lot of high tensions, but to me, it's like if you look at that explanation again, it's so ridiculous, and it gives more credence to what actually happened. But and what they're talking about, the press kind of just doing whatever they're told. They've been doing that for years and years, and they really continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, we talked about before why governments, one of the reasons why governments do cover these things up is to avoid mass hysteria, right?
Yeah.
And especially during that time, this was 1952.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the world was still reeling from the last World War, and I mean, yeah, it's 10 years later or whatever, but people don't want to be don't want to be or don't want to feel threatened, right? So by any means, and so that's why I feel like the government at that time, and to this date, to a certain degree, they just want to avoid that kind of fear, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't think that is valid anymore. Certainly, I mean, I think we've gone past that.
Oh,
We're not children out there, and I think they need to treat the American people with a little bit more respect and temperature inversions.
Yeah, absolutely. This day and age for sure. I mean, we're talking 50, 70 years later, we've gotten smarter. A lot of other people have gotten smarter. We've got technology now that's not dependent on, the government's equipment to be able to detect this, right? We've got cell phones, we've got, a camcorder, whatever. We can capture this on our own, and then when you corroborate it with other people that also witness the same thing and also capture the same images or video, yeah, it's definitely not as palatable for the government to try to lie or yeah, I mean, like they lie.
Sure. Yeah, and again, it just sort of comes down to can we take it? I think yes is the answer to that. I think we've gotten to that point. Then maybe not. It could be something that again to admit that they're coming into our airspace over our nation's capital
Exactly.
without any way of stopping them.
Yeah.
I can almost understand it to a certain extent.
Intercepted when they sent two twice, right, to intercept, and then they
Scrambled, yeah.
nothing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Crazy.
we'll continue here.
The people at Washington National Airport and at Andrews were expert radar people and personnel. They'd been there for many, many years and could easily differentiate between ground clutter and true metallic objects. I mean, if they couldn't, they shouldn't have been radar operators.
Exactly.
The senior radar air traffic controller at Washington National Airport, Harry Barnes, wrote his own account of the so-called Washington merry-go-round.
He describes the objects as making right-angle turns, as hovering, as reversing their course and moving back upon their path. One radar tracked the objects as moving at approximately 7,000 miles per hour. He had never
We
seen
didn't have anything like that then.
his years of being over a radar scope. He didn't know what they were.
There were a few others who did not believe the objects were simply a product of unusual weather conditions.
At that time, I was convinced that these things were interplanetary machines of some kind, mainly because of what happened that night in the radar room at Washington National Airport. I'm convinced that those objects were real. We don't know what they are. We don't know where they come from, but they are there.
Of course, it's entirely possible that the military didn't really believe its own explanation of the UFOs.
No fighters could catch up with these things, and they outmaneuvered the best that the military had to throw at them. Obviously, the people who were in charge of Air Force projects and Air Force intelligence at this time were not idiots. They were very, very smart people, as they are today. And I think they probably thought, once they appeared on Washington, oh my God, this is the holiest of holies. Now they're hovering around the White House and the Capitol.
The holiest of holies. Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of what we were just talking about there. Again, is the inability to do anything about it had to have felt like really crazy.
They could,
because they have jets at that time. I mean, their jets can go faster than the planes during World War II for sure, but the propeller planes, but 7,200 miles an hour, and to be able, and there's a lot of similarities to those sharp movements and turns that we hear about today, even with a lot of other reports that have come up. So it all follows a significant pattern. But just to think about that happening over Washington D.C., 75 years or 73 years ago, whatever it is, and to not have it be more well known is pretty insane.
Yeah, definitely kept this under wraps, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just sort of let it go. I mean, again, the press didn't follow up with it, and then it sort of just fades into existence, which is exactly what they wanted, I think.
Well, folks, tell us what you think. I mean, is this yet another successful government cover-up that we're just now finding out about because freedom of the press or whatever?
FOIA.
Freedom of information. But if you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe. And on YouTube, click on that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.